This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Per John Cass's column today, referring to Rauner as burnt toast, meaning he done. He cites Cardinal Cupich's response to Governor Rauner's decision yesterday to sign House Bill 40, which is Medicaid funding of abortion on demand, so taxpayer funding of abortion on demand in Illinois, the first state in the history of our country, the first governor to initiate such a program. Cardinal Cupich saying, "We are deeply disturbed. Governor Rauner has broken his word and his firm public promise to veto House Bill 40. He did break his word," Cupich told Tribune reporter Manaya Brashear. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. He broke his word to the people, especially to those who have continued to speak on behalf of the vulnerable child in the womb. So there's a grave moral error here. There's grave political error. I've suggested earlier in the week that it's when we reported it here first yesterday after my outlet, Prairie State Wire, reported it, that it's an integrity test. The commitment he made to have no social agenda when he was a candidate and in most of the last 3 years in office. The commitment he made to House and Senate Republican caucuses to veto the bill, which is what he also made that commitment to Cardinal Cupich. And obviously that commitment was broken yesterday.
You lie to the Cardinal, that's pretty bad. The man upstairs is watching.
Well, yeah, and it's a grave moral error. It's a grave personal integrity error, and thus, by extension, it's a grave political error. Again,
because it's a matter of trust for people.
Well, it is that.
Because I don't trust him now.
It's a matter of trust, right? So if the guy breaks his word on things, then can you trust anything he says, number one? Number two, it's a matter of where the general electorate actually is on this issue. 60% oppose likely general election voters. So this is not a close call. Just as sanctuary state legislation was not a close call, but he did it anyway. And so you've got reactions flowing in from a lot of Republicans who've already said, I'm not supporting him for his reelection, publicly disavowing him, as I suggested would happen. Alan Skillicorn, Jeannie Ives, Tim Bivens, a state senator from down in Dixon, and our next guest, who is is a state representative from Glen Ellen, Republican, but he's also the House Republican floor leader. He's Peter Breen. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, glad to be with you guys.
So, Peter, you issued one of the more stronger statements in response to what the governor did yesterday that was not limited to just his decision to sign House Bill 40, but was also a kind of a grander commentary on Bruce Rauner's executive management and other matters over the last 3 years as governor. Your position and a further explanation of why you indicated you will not support the governor's reelection.
Well, it comes down to a few reasons. One was we've been watching. He has not been able to competently administer the executive branch. He's been hiring and firing numerous people, all of whom were successful in their other positions. They come into his administration and inexplicably they look incompetent. And it's one of those things where when you've got a team and a coach, you get new players because they were losing games. And then all of a sudden you fire the assistant coaches and get new assistant coaches. And at the end of the day, you finally say, look, the reason we're losing is the coach. It's not all of the very competent people that are working for him. So we've seen that. That's been developing as well. He has badly botched the negotiations of the General Assembly. He came into office to stand up to Mike Madigan. And we're at a point where he is no longer able to be in a room with Speaker Madigan. So if you can't even enter that arena, how are we going to have you lead the charge to oppose the Madigan agenda? And then, of course, the decision yesterday really was the thing that broke the camel's back. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. He promised us. He looked me in the eye. He shook my hand. He made a commitment. He did the same to Cardinal Cupich, based on the media reports. He did the same to the people of Illinois. He told them, hey, I'm vetoing this. It's divisive. And that would have been the right decision. And I will say this, Dan. I told the governor on Wednesday that that there would be disavowals. I told him what would happen on Thursday if he did this. He went ahead. Unlike the governor, I am good to my word, so I did what needed to be done.
Well, maybe that's why he seemed so somber yesterday. And again, I felt like I was watching a counseling session because he was so
Weak.
It was just, a weak need. And it was almost as if, he's speaking on behalf of the ideologies of his wife rather than speaking on the conservative base of the party. I mean, I wonder if she threatened him with divorce. Like, if you don't sign this bill, I'm going to divorce you. No, it was weird. I'm sure you watched the whole press conference, right, Mr. Breen?
Well, no. When I heard about the press conference, I was at my office downtown. I walked over to the Thompson Center, showed him my badge and a state representative, and they had police guarding the door, and they said, "Well, no representative can't come in." So I actually had to see the clips afterward. And so, the Planned Parenthood Board of Directors, ACLU was in, but I was unable to go in just to be able to see what he was going to say.
The Planned Parenthood chairman was in there, but not a Republican, not the House Republican floor leader. You can't get in. But that tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Great information.
It's interesting too. So a bit of the politics of this. I mean, so the policy part of this is initiating a new spending program with a state that has $16 billion in unpaid bills, just for openers. The politics part of this is you've got incumbent Republican legislators disavowing him. You've got Republican organizations, the Northwest Side GOP, which is one of the better organizations in the state, released a statement saying, in response to what he did, we have no choice but to stop circulating petitions for the governor. And they're going to instead focus on local state legislative candidates. So what about the governor's political future? Do you think he should be the nominee of the party in 2018?
I do not believe he should be our nominee. I had already been hearing anecdotally before this decision, folks were having trouble getting those petitions signed. They were getting other people's petitions signed, but the governor himself, that was starting to be a problem. After that, I'd imagine anybody that's got petitions that are even partially filled out and hadn't sent them in yet, they'd probably throw them in the trash can. So one of my points, which, again, I'm not telling you anything I did not say to the governor's face. I gave full information to him. One of my points is he's done. The Rauner experiment is over. And we need to move through the 5 stages of grief pretty quickly. We're denial and anger. We need to get to acceptance as fast as possible. Because the state of Illinois needs a functioning, strong Republican Party. That policy position needs to be part of the public debate here. The Democrats have their best foot forward. We need our best foot forward. And together, that the interplay of ideas should give us the best policy results.
And there's just no way back, it seems to me, because as you said, you characterize HB 40 as the last straw. So this isn't isolated. This is a death spiral, political death spiral, much like Mark Kirk set himself in over the last couple of years leading into the 2016 election. And it seems to me one of the features of this that's underreported is the moderate ideologue. Conservatives are criticized by the press, the big government press in Chicago and Springfield, as being ideological and unyielding. What about the moderate ideologue? I know that sounds like a contradiction in terms, but when you have a supermajority of people in a likely general election voters oppose taxpayer funding of abortion, when you have a supermajority of likely general election voters oppose sanctuary state, when you have a supermajority of likely general election voters oppose trans birth certificates, and a super minority majority in among likely Republican primary voters in your constituents, then aren't we dealing with moderate ideologues? Social justice warriors, that's what Diana Rauner said she and her husband Bruce are. Turns out that the guy with no social agenda has nothing except a social agenda.
And that was part of what happened yesterday. It wasn't just the direct commitment to veto taxpayer funding of abortions. It was the entire package of Bruce Rauner running for office saying, I have no social agenda. And that was something that folks could say, you know what, you're pro-choice, we understand it, you've given a lot of money to Planned Parenthood and the ACLU, but you are committing that, that's not, you're not going to rock the boat that much on this. And instead he becomes the first governor to ever sign a bill that legalizes taxpayer funding of abortions. Best estimates, 20 to 30,000 abortions next year will be paid for by the Illinois taxpayer. This is catastrophic for those who have both fiscal concern and social concern. So, I mean, that's what's happened here. I would say, look, the Rauner experiment is done. We have to focus on how do we move forward.
Well, have you thought about running for governor?
You know, I certainly didn't have that thought at the beginning of the week. I've had a lot of people approach me about it and ask me about it. I have to tell you, I am very happy. I'm newly appointed as the House Republican floor leader. I've been in the office for a few months. I love serving the people of the 48th District, Glen Ellen, Lombard, Wheaton. And so, I mean, that's really where I'm at right now. But a lot of folks have asked. And I would say the party needs to come together and get a thorough vetting. Who is a potential candidate? Who can get this job done? Who can unite the various factions in the party? And who can, you know, you've got to be able to compromise. You have to be able to cut a deal. But you have to do it while you're maintaining a strong set of principles. That's a position of strength on behalf of the people of the state of Illinois.
And I think, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think
sure. We have a radical left-wing General Assembly. These are not your father's Democrats. We need a proper balance to that radical left-wing General Assembly.
And a little political sophistication wouldn't be a bad idea either. I mean, it is worth noting, and this is the spin that State Republican Chairman Tim Schneider tried to put on it, and he's in a difficult position while also announcing that he opposed what Governor Rauner did, as did his own lieutenant governor, as did just about everybody in the Republican Party. But of course, Democrats could have done this for the last decade plus when they had control of the General Assembly, plus Pat Quinn or Rod Blagojevich in the governor's mansion. They didn't do it. You know why they didn't do it? Because they're sophisticated politically, because Madigan and Cullerton know better than to do something that's divisive and puts a lot of their members in a difficult position. And I suppose Madigan, through much of his experience with Illinois Republicans, has also learned if he's just a little bit patient, Illinois Republicans will do my bidding for me, and I won't have to suffer any of the consequences. And this seems to me what's happened here.
Well, I mean, look, Madigan is always trying to put you in a trick bag, and the key is don't jump into the bag.
Yes, right,
so,
yes.
I mean, yeah, this is not rocket science. The guy does the same thing over and over and over again. So clear leadership and just a recognition of the basics of politics would be helpful. I'll tell you, we've had governors in other states who have successfully gone in and been able to go straight from business into being a governor. But in most of our larger states, that has not been common. That, you know, you'd have somebody that hadn't even run on a village board or served on a village board, much less the state legislature, be in the governor's mansion and be able to effectively administer the state. So I don't know. I mean, we're going to have a real discussion and dispute and debate. I think an appropriate one that needs to happen fast within the Republican Party to put forward our strongest candidate. We have got to unite, and the grassroots has to be united. You know, the establishment folks have to be united. We've got to be able to bring everybody together and move forward.
Do you think
for the sake of the people of the state?
Do you think the House Republican Caucus, of which you're the floor leader, should take a unanimous position that's consistent with your position?
Unanimous? I mean, I don't.
I mean, speak as a caucus, essentially. Yeah.
Sure. Look, and in my, I put out a pretty strong statement, and there's an issue. You know, some folks are not necessarily ready to say exactly what I've said, but I have heard from a lot of my colleagues that I said what was on everybody's mind,
yeah. And
maybe because of who I am and the fact that I raise my own money, have separate ways of getting elected and things like that. I had the freedom to be able to say what maybe was on everybody's mind.
All right. He is State Representative and House Republican Floor Leader Peter Breen. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.